I'm here today to present a request to have the state auditor do a comprehensive assessment of information technology systems under the California Department of Technology. Californians are interacting more and more with our government services online, and as we all know, issues plaguing our legacy technology systems continue to compromise California's ability to deliver core services to our constituents. We need to make sure that the Department of Technology is right-sized, offering appropriate project oversight, and ready to meet the challenges of serving our state. While the state auditor has audited pieces of IT systems under the CDT umbrella and does check up on particularly troubled projects like Fiscal, the legislature needs a more holistic view of the systems that undergird our departments. This request includes an examination of the role that CDT plays in project procurement, project oversight, and how it interacts with the departments that use its services. I believe that an audit is needed to shine light on the services that CDT provides so that we, the legislature, have an accurate and thorough understanding of the department's role in order to make necessary changes. I think the bottom line is that we know that things are not functioning as effectively as they could be, and we cannot make appropriate adjustments if we don't really understand the root cause of what's not working. So thank you for your consideration of this request, and happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
All right. Thank you, Assembly Member. At this time, let's go ahead and move to the auditor's presentation. Mr. Tilden, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. As Assemblymember Petrie-Norris indicated, this audit would really focus on the Department of Technology's oversight of state information technology projects and the state's safeguards over cybersecurity threats. And this would be more of a holistic audit where we take a look at the various processes that the Department of Technology uses for reviewing and improving information technology projects and procurements, and also taking a look at the extent to which the department is taking a leadership position in terms of being responsible for oversight of the planning, the coordination, including any new systems that would allow for interdepartmental communication and information sharing. As part of the audit, we'd review the Department of Technology's PAL process, their project approval lifecycle process, and take a look at their oversight on a variety of statewide information technology projects. For example, we would determine whether the department has completed or conducted an entire inventory of all the information technology systems that state departments are using, including the age of those systems and the adequacy of their security controls. In addition, we would examine the extent to which the department has assessed and measured the information security status across the entire state. And we'd also take a look at a sample of projects, including projects at the Employment Development Department and Fiscal, and take a look at the Department of Technology's oversight over those projects and determine whether it's fulfilling its roles and responsibilities to each of the departments and to the state. As a part of that, we take a look at, for each one of those, that selection of projects, what were the estimated and actual implementation costs, the projected and actual timelines for system development, and the number of and reasons for any change orders or contract amendments. We'd also take a look at what steps does the department take when there are variances in these projects in terms of their scope, schedule, or cost, and determine whether the department is doing a good job of identifying those variances as quickly as possible and taking appropriate action. We'd also take a look at whether the department is right-sized and whether they have the appropriate number of staff to handle their responsibilities for overseeing IT technology projects and the security status of the state's IT assets. And lastly, we would conduct a survey of all state departments that use technology services and basically determine, are they satisfied with the department's services? Are they aware of what the department does? Are they using the department's services? And are they satisfied? As a part of that, we would also independently determine the number of legacy systems that are out there in various state departments that are in need of modernization, and we would determine and prioritize those that are most critical. This is a pretty complex audit. We're estimating about 3,200 hours to complete it, so that's about 7 months. Depending on the number of other audits that the committee approves today, I think we could probably shorten the duration of this audit a bit if we can assign a couple of different team leaders and a larger team to get through this work more quickly. With that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tilden. At this time, let me invite any witnesses and the affected agencies. Agencies up, thank you. And I believe we have the California Department of Technology with us here today. Please proceed when you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Salas and the members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide CDT's perspective on the proposed audit. Here with me today is Caroline Nostrom. She is the Deputy Director of Project Management Office, California Department of Technology. The California Department of Technology...
If you could just state your name for the record also.
My name is Chi Emadi. I'm the State Chief Project Officer
Thank you.
for the California Department of Technology. The California Department of Technology is very appreciative of the opportunity to engage with Assemblymember Petrie-Norris and your staff. And we certainly appreciate her continued discussion with the department. The CDT understands that the objective of the proposed audit is to broadly examine the scope of the department's oversight and their authority and its role as well in managing IT systems statewide. We are not opposed to the review, but ask that the audit be more specified and more focused in different areas because, one, limited amount of resources to dedicate to the audit. The staff has been through many drills, including audits and emergencies. Their bandwidth is very limited. Number two, some of the requested information in the audit is currently public information, and we can provide that to the committee. Number three, some of the requested information as well was just part of the audited audit done by the CSA, and those findings are being released and can also be sent to your office. The CSA completed an audit of CDT's IT oversight back in August 2021, and we are addressing their findings. Also, they completed and conducted a completed comprehensive information security audit in December 2021, and we're also addressing those findings. CDT is also a partner in audits of customer department's IT projects and IT systems on an ongoing basis. The CSA is aware of the practice and also collaborative process. As for other audit objectives, CDT by statute is mandated to update the legislature periodically. In short, the audit covers areas that have been either audited recently or subject to periodic reporting, or information is already publicly available and outside of the CDT's oversight authority. We respectfully suggest a few modifications to the audit. One, we recommend that audit objectives number 1, 2, 3A, 4, and 6 will yield the most beneficial information regarding CDT's existing overall oversight authority for IT projects and related procurements. These audit objectives will provide insight into CDT's limited oversight authority when projects are deployed by state departments and transitioned into operations and maintenance phase. CDT recommends audit objectives number 3B through E on information security and modernization be removed. While there is some overlap with audit objective number 2, number 4, and number 7, it should be noted that Government Code Section 11546.45, enacted in 2021 through Budget Trailer Bill, requires the department to identify, assess, and prioritize legacy information technology system modernization efforts across state governments. CDT is in the process of conducting this assessment and submit biannual status report to the legislature on these activities. We also recommend removing audit objectives number 5, number 8, and number 9. The project identified in audit objective number 5 are not reflective of CDT's oversight authority. Audit objective number 8 is duplicative of annual surveys that CDT conducts to all state departments to understand the needs and services of the specific departments. We can provide the survey reports for review. Audit number 9 may not yield the information the committee is trying to collect through the audit to inform future legislative actions. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you. At this time, let's go ahead and move to questions from members on the dais. Ms. Petrie-Norris, I'll allow you an opportunity to address some of the concerns raised by the agencies, or Mr. Tilden, if you'd like to comment on some of those things. I feel like we just discussed some of that in the previous audit as well.
Right. And
Please.
I will, I guess, maybe provide sort of the 30,000-foot level, and then love you to provide some additional detail as well. And I think one of the points that you raise, and I know some of the conversation we've been having has been around the department's desire for us to focus on sort of a more specific area. And I think you've pointed to the fact that there's been these kind of one-off audits, and it feels like you're always getting these requests. And I think from my perspective, kind of taking a step back, that's one of the reasons that we do need to do a more comprehensive and integrated audit. And my goal would be that it's so we can stop doing the one-offs, because I think that whatever the case, we know something is not working effectively. We know that we as a state consistently fail to deliver on large-scale technology projects. We also know that we're in a position where so many of our legacy systems are in grave need of being updated, frankly, right now. And so there's two questions. I think number one is, the prioritization of that is incredibly important, but it's also incredibly important that we have processes in place and fine-tuned before we embark on those endeavors. I think that that's really critical to ensure that we don't end up with A, squandering a lot of taxpayer dollars, and B, with a lot of headlines that none of us want to see, and C, with systems that are just not delivering for Californians. So that's kind of my, 30,000-foot view. I know you had some specific comments on specific elements, which perhaps if our auditor could respond to some of those points, that would be helpful.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Petrie-Norris. Mr. Tilden, too, also, they mentioned that there was a CDT security audit in 2021. I would imagine your team would just be able to build off of whatever internal audits or any other information that's out there as well. If you please care to comment.
Sure, that's correct, Mr. Chair. We have done a number of audits at the Department of Technology, but they have all had very specific scopes. We've been monitoring CDT's monitoring of the Fiscal project for a number of years, probably 10 years. Done the same thing with CDT's involvement in monitoring the replacement efforts for the CAMA system. But I think here, what's different here is this is asking us to take a more macro view of the job that the Department of Technology is doing, overseeing a variety of different IT projects that various state departments are working on. And as part of that, taking a sort of a deep dive on that project approval lifecycle, that process that CDT has in place for monitoring these projects. Also, I think if we can take a look at a sample of projects that we haven't looked at before. I mean, we've looked at EDD, we've looked at Fiscal, and we can do a deeper dive there. But look at some other IT projects where we haven't been there and take a look at whether or not the department is really adding value in terms of, are they ensuring that the scope and that these projects are completed on time, that these projects are delivering all the functionality that they intended to deliver at the beginning, and taking a look at really Department of Technology's, their whole IPO process, their process of providing independent project oversight to ensure that these projects are not exceeding their scope or their cost or their timelines. And when that happens, is the department doing a good job of taking some corrective action? So I think overall, this would be different from anything we've done in the past. This would be more of a macro view of what technology department is doing, as opposed to some of the micro analyses that we've done. And one last thing, it is true that we recently issued a report on the information security status. And so I think there's really no duplication here. What we'd be doing if this audit is approved is following up on those recommendations and determining, not doing a deep dive, but determining, is the technology department, do they now have a handle on the overall security status of state departments?
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Tilden. With that, let me go ahead and return it back to the members. Seeing no additional, Mr. Senator Becker, please.
Oh,
That's a question.
I was going to say, I was very eager to see this audit and excited for it. I was interested to hear, I mean, I heard the point about hey, some of these pieces may have been audited in the past, and I appreciate the Assemblywoman saying this is meant to be sort of more comprehensive. I was looking at the scope. I was wondering, number one, is our are hiring practices included in this, in the sense that one of the things I hear, it's hard, especially with our entry-level salaries, to attract the kind of talent that we might sometimes want in our technology departments. Is that included at all?
Mr. Tilden or Ms. Petrie-Norris?
Becker, it's not at the moment. I don't believe, it's not explicitly called out. Is it?
Objective 6, I think it's pretty close to
Okay,
looking
let's
at is CDT right-sized?
Right. I think, yes, thank you. As the auditor pointed out, I mean, the language is fairly broad in point 6, perform work aimed at determining whether CDT is right-sized. But Senator, I think that's an excellent point, and certainly an important question that we need to ask if we're going to build a department that can effectively deliver the services that we need them to do.
Great. Well, yeah, if that one is broad enough to encompass it, I think that would be very positive. Again, just overall, sympathetic to the feeling of being constantly the pieces of this being looked at. But I think to the point made. Well, I guess the other question I would have, and just sort of again looking through the scope, trying to understand this, is this sort of involve looking at, say, private sector, how the private sector might handle certain things, like I think of the EDD phone system, why we can't, still a year later after we promised have, automated callbacks and things like that, that are just absolutely standard in the industry. Is that encompassed anywhere here, looking at, say, how the private sector might handle certain very, very, very similar technology systems?
Yeah, and that too is an excellent point, and I think one that we've all seen when the dysfunction, when the dysfunction of some of those practices is, with the EDD fiasco, for example, we saw that our inability to pull in high-performing private sector support really did damage our ability to serve Californians in time of critical need. So it's such an important question. I do think that point is encompassed in the point 4 talks about procurement and vendor selection. So I think that is reflected there. I don't know if you'd like to add anything on that.
I agree. I think Objective 4 would have us taking a look at technology's role in managing a selection of procurements, and specifically taking a look at the process that they use to procure those vendors for that system and what that process looks like, and their policies and procedures for vetting those potential vendors, and as a part of that, ensuring that there aren't any conflicts of interest during that selection process.
Yeah, and certainly conflicts of interest is important, but also making sure that, we're looking at a broad variety of vendors, maybe some smaller, startup companies that may not have, always bid on sort of government, contracts in this kind of area. I guess. Yeah, and I think it sounds like it is covered, but I was also talking really just more specifically when we're comparing some of these things, maybe looking at how they're done in the private sector versus maybe how similar things were handled here. Because I think to the point that was made, it's just trying to understand how some things that are just deeply standard in private sector companies who deal with, say, call centers, we just have not been able to achieve. So, but it sounds like that could be covered in that point.
I think so. We also have Objective 9 that really is giving us an opportunity to identify any best practices or recommendations that could assist technology departments' ability to successfully deliver these IT projects. And so I think that gives us an avenue to really get out there and try to identify some of these best practices that are occurring in the private sector that the state could employ.
Great. This last question, in terms of the audit itself, in terms of the capability of the auditor's office in evaluating technology projects specifically, could you speak to that? Would you have to, as the auditor's office, engage other experts to sort of make sure we have that knowledge in terms of doing the audit, or do you feel that capability is there?
We have done quite a few audits in the area of technology at CDT. We've looked at Fiscal, we've looked at EDD, we've looked at CAMUS. So I actually think we have quite a bit of experience and expertise in that area, but we also have the ability, if we need to hire a contractor with specific expertise, if that would be at all helpful.
Okay. Yeah, just obviously, you look at that, but, to consider that, because, again, if we're evaluating best practice, these things change very quickly, and, best practice now, today, might even not be best practice, a year or two ago. So I've just certainly considered that. But with that, I'll be happy to support this today.
Thank you, Senator Becker. Let me ask if there's additional questions from the dais. Hearing and seeing none, let me now turn it over to public comment. Let me ask if there's any public comment at this time. Hearing and seeing none, let me return the item back to the dais. Let me ask Assemblymember Petrie-Norris if she'd like to close.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members, for that discussion. I think throughout the pandemic, we certainly saw the disastrous results of systems that are overloaded, antiquated, and just not ready for the task of delivering for Californians. I think we all recognize that something needs to change, and we as the legislature cannot make changes by just shooting in the dark. We need this comprehensive audit so that we can consider action to ensure that our state's IT systems are safeguarded, nimble, and responsive to our ever-evolving reality. So with that, I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Is there a motion on this item? Moved by Senator Leyva, seconded by Mr. Becker. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
The motion is to approve Audit Request 2022-114, California Department of Technology, Oversight by Assemblymember Petrie-Norris. Assemblymember Salas.
Aye.
Salas, aye. Berner Horvath. Kiley.
Aye.
Kiley, aye. Patterson.
Aye.
Patterson, aye. Rubio. Vopel.
Aye.
Vopel, aye. Wood.
Aye.
Wood, aye. Senator Hertzberg. Becker. Becker, aye. Borges. Glazier. Leyva. Leyva, aye. McGuire. Nielsen.
All right, that item's on call. Thank you, Ms. Petrie-Norris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.